How's it going, crewmates? You're gonna get tired of hearing me say that throughout this video, but I am going to put episodes 1 through 5 of Sins in Video Games all in this one video. So you're going to see me go from extreme cringe level all the way to rushed. So yeah, just enjoy the video and cringe as much as you want. Goodbye, crewmates. Hello there and welcome to Sins in Video Games. I want to address two things before starting the video. One, I know that there's a YouTube channel called Gaming Sins. I do not watch their channel, so I have no idea what they do. Two, this series is not trying to copy their channel, and this series will use the true meaning of sin, which is an immoral act considered to be transgression against divine law, which in short means anything that's against God or anything that takes you away from God. The second thing I want to address is this series will be using Christian themes, and this is inspired by the Bible, Jesus, and my love for video games, and I'm going to use that to inform you all about sins in video games. So, you're curious about the original sins in Super Mario? Great! But KRF, you may be asking, how do you tell us the sins in Mario if the original game didn't have a story? Well, the answer to that is this right here. Dun, da, 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 da. It's the NES booklet for the original Super Mario Bros. This booklet right here contains the story from the original Mario Bros. It's a small and basic Save the Princess story, but in these short lines of text, it reveals that this 32-level game is sinful. So let's read the story, and let me point out all the sinful parts. One day, the Mushroom Kingdom was invaded by the Koopa, a tribe of turtles capable of powerful, dark magic. Their magic was used to transform all the mushroom people into inanimate objects such as rocks, bricks, and even horsetail plants, thus spelling the kingdom's downfall. Only the daughter of the Mushroom King, Princess Toadstool, can undo the spell and restore her people back to life. But she's being held captive by the Koopa King himself. Mario hears the princess's plight, blah 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 blah, save the world. Let me also note that in Japan, the Koopas are a demon tribe, and Bowser's full title is Great Demon King of Turtle Tribe, and it was changed in America because Nintendo used to censor everything that had to do with religion, including gods and demons. The sinful parts in the text that are against the Christian-based religions are powerful dark magic, undo the spell and restore her people back to life, and Great Demon King of the Turtle Tribe. Let's look at those parts about magic. In the Christian faith, magic is viewed as demonic. All demonic things are against God. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18, verse 11 and 12, says, anyone who casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consult the dead, anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord, and because of these detestable practices, the Lord your God will drive out those nations before you. In Exodus chapter 22, verse 18, it states, do not allow sorceresses to live.
You must die!
Man, I am putting so much heavy stuff on this game meant for kids under 10. But hey, that's what the Bible says. And it's true. That is literally all the sins in Super Mario that I could find in the story. Now, I'm not saying that these games are entirely bad. If you tweak the story here and there, you can have a game that is sin-free. And with that, we're done. I know that this is a pilot episode, and if you followed this channel for a long time, you should know that I don't stay true to finishing a series, but I will tell you that I am dedicating a lot of time to this series, and I will continue doing so. And with that, we are done. How's it going, crewmates? It's KRF, and welcome to episode 2 of Sins in Video Games. The last episode in this series reached my expectations, so after careful decision, I've decided that this video is going to be about the sins in Pokemon. More specifically, the design and type of each Pokemon of the first generation, and what they're based on, and if you want to see a video on Pokemon moves, that will be in the future. Now, for those of you who have been around my channel for a long time, you should know that I'm a big Zelda fan, and an episode on sins in Zelda won't be made anytime soon due to some issues in the communities I partake in and some clarification, I guess. So like I said, I've decided to make a video on the designs and type of each Pokemon from the Kanto region. If you're someone viewing this video and aren't into video games, or you don't know anything about Pokemon, let me explain. In every Pokemon game, you start off in a region. Each region has their own unique Pokemon. Game Freak, the company that makes Pokemon games, see Pokemon as animals, and each real-life animal lives in a different part of the world according to the animal's environmental needs. The same goes for Pokemon. The first Pokemon region, Kanto, originally had 151 Pokemon. I'm only doing a video on Kanto because currently there are 7 regions and in total there are 802 Pokemon. At least until Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon come out this November. So starting off the video, we need to separate the dirt from the gold. Not all Pokemon are based off something that is sinful from a biblical perspective. Take for instance the 3 Pokemon you can choose at the start of the game. Bulbasaur is a poisonous dinosaur frog plant thing, and it evolves into a bigger dinosaur frog plant thing. Charmander is a salamander that can shoot fire from its mouth. Pokemon theorists believe that the fire is produced by a reaction between 2 chemicals in its stomach, and it eventually becomes a dragon based on the Komodo dragon. I'll leave a link to the theory below on the fire shooting thing. And the last starter, Squirtle, is just a little blue turtle that spits water and bubbles from its mouth. It evolves into a bigger turtle with water shooting cannons coming out of its shell. These Pokemon are based off animals. The same goes for the next few Pokemon on the list. So Pokemon 1 through 34 are excluded, since they're bugs, birds, and different kinds of mice. Pokemon number 35 through 40 is where the identifying begins. Clefairy and its evolution Clefable are Pokemon from outer space. Clefairy was a normal type in the original Pokemon games, but recently Game Freak changed their types to Fairy. The Bible does not mention anything about fairies, but if you watched the last episode, you should remember that I mentioned a quote from the book of Deuteronomy about magic and how magic users were killed. If you know anything about fairy lore, you should know that fairies are magic users that are apparently too good for hell and not good enough for heaven. Fairies use magic. The book of Deuteronomy clarifies that magic is evil, and so are the people who use it. So these 2 Pokemon are the beginning of the sinful Pokemon design, also Jigglypuff and Wigglypuff since they're both fairy types. Vulpix and its evolution Ninetales are both fox Pokemon that are based off 9-tailed foxes. In Japan, the 9-tailed fox is a powerful spirit that likes to play tricks on people, and they are known for their ability to disguise themselves as beautiful women. So, in the Bible there are different spirits. The Holy Spirit, which is the third of the Holy Trinity. There are angels, which protect us and do all the things God says. And there are demons, which were angels that cared more about themselves than God. Because of this, they were casted out of heaven and into hell. They have a hatred for God and all his creations, and they are the reason why there is sin, and the leader of the demons, Satan, tempted Eve, or tricked her into eating a fruit from a tree God told her and Adam not to eat from. The Holy Spirit and the angels that serve God don't trick people, but demons do, like Satan when he tricked Eve. So Vulpix and Ninetales are based off something evil. And I just want to say this now, I am not saying that the creators of the game did this intentionally or unintentionally. I'm just saying that some of these things are sins from a Christian perspective, or a biblical viewpoint, I guess you could say. The next 22 Pokemon are fine. They're just based off animals, plants, boxing monkeys, and tadpoles. Then we get to Pokemon 63 through 65, the Abra evolution line. The first Psychic-type Pokemon. A Psychic can be classified under the magic users, and if you watched the last episode, you should remember what the Book of Deuteronomy says about magic users. I recommend you watch it. And apparently, Abra used to be a human that turned into a Pokemon. I'm not going to go any further with this because Pokemon turning into humans, and yeah, next I'll just be getting into a bunch of Pokemon theories, and that's not what most of you came here for. Pokemon 66 through 78 are humanoid creatures, more plants, some squids, rocks with faces, and 2 horses that have fire replacing their manes, and like I said before with Charmander, it could be a chemical reaction, but that's just a theory. Next we have Slowpoke and Slowbro, and they are psychic types, and like I said before with Abra, Kadabra, and Alakazam, psychic types can be under magic users, except here's the weird part. Slowpoke is apparently a hippopotamus. A psychic hippopotamus! Skipping over some more Pokemon without any sinful design that I could find, 81 through 91 consist of magnets with intelligence, birds, seals, intelligent toxic waste, and clams. 92 through 94 are ghosts that will inflict you with poison, give you nightmares, and kill you just because they want friends. The Dex entry for Gengar in Pokemon Sun says, Should you feel yourself attacked by a sudden chill, it is evident of a Gengar approaching. There's no escaping it, give up. While in Pokemon Moon tries to be positive, it says it apparently wishes for a traveling companion. Since it was once a human itself, it tries to create one by taking the lives of other humans. It's kind of sad, but it's not good, because it's murder. So, yeah, sin identified. Number 95 is fine, it's just a worm or like a snake made out of rocks. Number 96 and 97, however, are Drowsy and Hypno. Drowsy is a Psychic-type Pokemon that eats people's dreams and is based off an anteater. Drowsy's evolution is called Hypno. Hypno is a Psychic-type, it looks like a human, and it's even under the human-like egg group, but it's thought to be like some sort of ape. Almost every single Pokedex entry, almost every single one, talks about the dangers of Hypno. Take for instance its most recent entry. As a matter of course, it makes anyone it meets fall asleep and has a taste of their dreams. Anyone having a good dream, it carries off. I think I speak for everyone when I say, we don't want that type of creature living in our world. Pokemon 98 through 120 are more animals, and Pokemon 121, 122, and 124 are all Psychic types, and 122 is also half Fairy type. You already know by now the whole Psychic type, Fairy type thing, so I'm not going to go anywhere further with that. Pokemon 125 through 143 consist of more land animals, bugs, fish, a failed lab attempt, a one-tailed fox, meaning it's fine, a successful lab experiment, 5 prehistoric Pokemon that have been brought back to life from their fossils, and the laziest Pokemon in existence. The part about the 5 prehistoric Pokemon, I'm assuming it's fine because it's like a woolly mammoth trapped in ice that people still have in museums. Before I move on with the last 8 Pokemon, since I already know they all have something that can be identified as a sin, I want to go back to that one-tailed fox I mentioned, which are named Eevee. Eevee is a unique Pokemon that can currently have 8 different evolutions. I know that in the future it can evolve into a Psychic type, a Dark type, or a Fairy type. But since those evolutions aren't present in the first game, I won't mention them in this video. And I know they're called Eeveelutions, don't get mad at me. I know that if you're watching this as a fan of Pokemon, you're probably just here to roast me on the internet. Like, I'm not trying to offend anyone. This video is meant for people who are curious about sins in the Bible, and for Christian families just to be aware of sins in video games. This series is also meant to just promote a change in games. Like, if a Pokemon game could be made without using certain Pokemon like Psychic or Fairy types, even though I know it's impossible, I have a right to suggest it, right? Anyways, enough about my rant. Time for the last 8 Pokemon on the list of the Kanto region. Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres are known as the legendary bird trio. So these Pokemon are categorized under legendary. It's not a type. They're known as legendary Pokemon because in the world of Pokemon they are quote-unquote gods. Well, most of the legendary Pokemon are. Each legendary Pokemon that is like a god has some sort of authority over the Pokemon world. So in the Pokemon world, they have a story on how the oceans are created. Articuno and Moltres' combined powers of ice and fire are the source and cradle of the oceans, and Zapdos' electric energy creates currents and streams, which is why the 3 ancient Pokemon are closely bonded to the guardian of the ocean, Lugia. Lugia is a Generation 2 Pokemon, which means it's the next 3 games. So if you want a part 2 to this video, please leave a like. There is only one God. God said that it is a sin to worship false gods. Now, the legendary bird trio created the ocean, and they are also considered gods in the Pokemon world, and that is a sin in itself. Next up are the Dratini, Dragonair, and Dragonite line. And remember how earlier I said Charizard is based off the Komodo dragon? Well, sometimes people say he's based off the Komodo dragon, other people say he's based off a lizard, or a lizard, like it says Charizard at the end of his name. Charizard, alongside Dratini, are based off dragons. Charizard, probably. In the Bible, Satan is referred to as a dragon. Revelations chapter 12 verse 9 say, "The great dragon was hurled down, this ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him." I'll be completely honest with all you guys, I'm more of a Cyndaquil fan anyways. And finally, Mewtwo and Mew. Both are psychic-type cats, more specifically based off the furless cats from Egypt, and Mewtwo is probably half Frieza. Mew has the ability to learn every single move. All the Pokemon fans thought that it was the god of all Pokemon because Mew has the DNA of every single Pokemon. But then we got Generation 4, and this video is going to be twice as long if I dive into that. So, yeah. And last but not least, we have Mewtwo, who is also a psychic type like I said a second ago. A Pokemon that was made to be a clone of Mew, except it became too powerful for the scientists to control it. So, Mewtwo fled and hides in Cerulean Cave until the player finds it and catches it, which is optional. There, that's all the Pokemon of the Kanto region. Surprisingly, only 29 out of the 151 have something that can be identified as sinful. In complete honesty, I'm surprised myself. I thought there would be more. So, I've identified all the Pokemon with sinful design, bad background, and types. So, here's my challenge to you. Go through an entire Pokemon game without using a Psychic, Ghost, Dragon, Dark, and Fairy types. That sounds like an interesting Nuzlocke. So, yeah, having to release all Pokemon of those specific types. Leave a comment on what you want the next video to be about, or vote using the iCard above. And I'll be honest with all of you, Generation 2 and Generation 5 are my favorites. And I still like the Pokemon card game, but I don't use the types I've mentioned. Well, anyways, that's all for this episode of Sins in Video Games. Please excuse my voice because I'm sick. So, I didn't really want to tackle any big video games in this series because, one, Minecraft is literally number 2 on the best-selling video games, and 2, I don't want this video being taken down by Mojang, whatever. But Minecraft does have a few sins under its belt. Either way, I feel like it's fine to poke at Minecraft for this. I mean, these things are optional for the player to do. So here are 3 quick sins in Minecraft. In Minecraft, you can enchant your tools and armor with a magic book called an enchantment table. Enchant is used in the context of magically enchanted. Refer back to Deuteronomy like I have in the last 2 videos. Number 2, 2 enemies in Minecraft, both being magic users. The Witch uses potions, and Vindicator summons flying minions. Again, Deuteronomy, magic. And finally, you have the choice of going to hell. The player can decide for themselves if they want to go to hell for treasure or for materials. You should not have the desire to go to hell, which makes that a sin. And there are just a few sins in Minecraft. Now, it would be longer and I'd go more in depth, but again, this is just a little mini episode and I'm a bit sick, so I can't really tolerate my sore throat and speak at the same time so much, so yeah. How's it going, crewmates? It's KRF, and welcome to another episode of Sins in Video Games. This series uses the Bible to determine whether or not certain characters, items, songs, or story elements contain sin. After the 5th episode of this series, I will be dedicating videos to how we can make these video games I've mentioned less sinful, starting with Pokemon, since so far that video has the most views. Alright, so moving on to the topic of this video, today we'll be looking at sins in Zelda enemies. I want to do a video of the sins in Zelda throughout the entire series, since I am a fan of Zelda, and I grew up with it. But the series is big, and there's an entire timeline, so I can't promise that a video about that will come anytime soon, because I want to get in depth with the story, and the characters, and stuff like that. So yeah, let's get into this. So, like I said, the Zelda series is big, more than 30 years big, and in those 30 plus years, 19 games are about one single story that splits into 3 different paths, cause time travel. Of course, I'm not going to tackle all 19 games in one video. Instead, I'll do the original Zelda, and The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past will be next episode, since this is going to be 2 parts, and I'll extend from that since, you know, 19 games. So let's go. So in the original Legend of Zelda, you can go anywhere you want, and I'm going to start with what is known as level 1, and the first boss of level 1 is Aqua Mentis. Aqua meaning water, and Mentis meaning... Okay, this is kind of a weirdish definition, because I've never heard this word up to this point, so yeah. Here's your definition. So, Aqua Mentis is a boss that appears in both original Legend of Zelda and the Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons games. If you couldn't tell by its design, Aqua Mentis is based off a dragon. In our Pokemon episode, I mentioned dragons in the Bible. The devil is referred to as a dragon in Revelations chapter 12:9, which says, and I'm going to say it again, the great dragon was hurled down, the ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the world astray. He was hurled to earth and his angels with him. Revelations chapter 12, verse 9. So there we go, we already got Aqua Mentis out, and I want to make something clear. This is a Zelda game, so expect there to be a lot, and I mean a lot, of dragons, spiders, and pigs. Lots and lots of pigs. Next we have Armos, a reoccurring enemy in the original Legend of Zelda. The artwork portrays the Armos as a more humanoid than they do in the game. The game's manual says they are even stated to have once been human soldiers that were turned to stone. How they were turned to stone? I have no idea. Was it something magical? Probably not. I don't know. In later Zelda games, they're portrayed to be more like robots than statues, so this could be sinful, but lately Armos have been shown to be more robotic than magical, and we already know that in the Legend of Zelda universe there are different ways of powering machines through minerals and stuff like that. Next we have the bubble, which I already know is sinful. Bubbles are skulls surrounded by magic, or fire, or ice, depending on the game. The bubbles in the first Zelda drain your health, and in other games they drain your magic and health. Magic, like we referred to in the last 3 videos. Deuteronomy, look it up. I'm putting it up on the screen like I did in the last 3 episodes. Be prepared to read Deuteronomy a lot in this video and in other future videos because I refer to Deuteronomy a lot, especially for what it says about magic users. And, you know, we already referred magic is a sin. We've already identified that in the previous videos, which I recommend you watch, especially Pokemon, because Pokemon's my strongest one so far. Next, we have Goliath, another dragon. Its reasoning for being a sin is just the same as the other dragon. You never see it coming. It's a dragon. So this right here in front of you is a like. This atrocity right here is literally called a like. They get Link inside of them, spit him out, and rob him of his magic shield. Wait, he steals the magic shield. We have someone doing the right thing. He's getting rid of the magic. Here we go. Play the victory fanfare. Well, I mean, he also robs him of his money, but we have a hero. You never see it coming. You say that my money's too fast for rice. Stripping you of sinful objects and your money. Seems legit. So, here we have the Lynels. They are horses with lion heads that have swords and shoot fire from their mouth. In their most latest incarnation, they have horns coming out of their head, and let me tell you, these guys are not easy to deal with. I'll tell you why they're sinful in the next episode, because reasons and the Lynels also show up in A Link to the Past, which will be next episode. Stalfos. Usually they are the remains of soldiers who still haven't accepted their fate, cursed with the desire to win the war even after death. In Ocarina of Time, Stalfos are adults who were lost in the woods, and they were turned into this bloodthirsty savage warrior, while children lost in the woods became Skull Kids. Only in an E-rated game made by Nintendo would they put this nightmare fuel. Wallmasters, big hands that come from the walls and ceilings of dark areas. They grab Link and take him out of whatever dungeon he's in. At the end of the video, at the end of the Link to the Past being sinful, I will also explain why they are sinful. Wizrobes, wizards that cast beams and magic energy, and they are named after the cloaks that they often wear. Again, Deuteronomy. And now, the final enemy in The Legend of Zelda, the most reoccurring antagonist, and he's known by the King of Evil, King of Thieves, Prince of Darkness, and Prince of the Gerudo. What his title throughout Hyrule's history is the embodiment of the Demon King Demise's hatred. That right there is proof in itself. Demons are the reason for sin. This thing is supposed to be the embodiment, the reincarnation of a demon. It is literal sin, and on top of that, he is made up of the pure hatred of one, and hating someone is a sin in itself. And yeah, so that's all the sins I could find in the original Legend of Zelda. I'm going to have to split the video into more parts. Next will be about A Link to the Past, and there are more enemies there, and I will explain why Lionels and Wallmasters are sinful. How's it going, crewmates? It's KRF, and welcome to another episode of Sins in Video Games. So, I didn't like how the sins in Sonic music turned out and how the sins in Fire Emblem turned out either, so I had an idea, a specific sin across multiple games. This is the 5th installment in a series meant for gamers, Christians, and the curious, where we basically use the Bible to determine whether something in a video game is a sin, but today is a bit different. Usually these videos are in a checklist fashion. I've already covered the fact that magic is a sin and dragons are demons, but did I really talk about how bad they are? Well, we're not talking about consequences of these things today, but instead we'll be looking at false gods and idols in video games, and what the Bible says about worshiping them. And like I said, it's usually a checklist fashion, and I don't really get specific with what the Bible says, and in my head I assume most of you know some of the Bible's contents. And while it's true people usually know a few things, they don't really understand on why. So I found a few verses in the Bible that talk about worshiping false gods. And before we start the video, I want you all to hit the like button, subscribe, and also share this video, and hit the I card in the top right corner on which game should be next in this series, Shovel Knight or Undertale. Now, on with the video. So, as I mentioned, worshipping false gods is a sin, and in the Ten Commandments, worshipping false gods is the first. I am the Lord your God, you shall not have strange gods before me. Stop and think for a minute. What does the term strange gods mean? Well, in Philippians chapter 3, verse 19, it makes things clear. Their minds are set on earthly things. From what we know about God, he is outside of time. He sometimes seems strange to us because he can see everything in the world in its entirety, while we only understand what's close to us on Earth, the moon, the stars. So, false gods view the world in a way that seems logical to us because they can't see beyond that and they have limitations. So, what does this have to do with video games? Well, everything actually, because these so-called false gods aren't even meant to be called gods. They are either humans or demons. You might say to me, that's stupid. I mean, I can see why this character can be that, but not all of them. And I would just respond with, remember, this is all being viewed from a Christian viewpoint. So, who should I call out first? Let's go in order from the video games that I've done a video on, starting with Super Mario. In Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, Mario and Luigi meet two gods known as Fire God and Thunder God. They were both presumably worshipped by the Fire Orb and the Thunder Orb in their temples. Both grant Mario and Luigi gifts of fire and thunder, and it's mandatory to receive this if you want to pass the game. So Mario and Luigi got these gifts from two false gods, and it's used to help people. So how is it a sin if it's used to help people? In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 20, it says, sacrifice to idols is a sacrifice to demons. And people who make deals or accept gifts from evil don't go to heaven unless they give it up and seek repentance and forgiveness, but still. We also have the Cosmic Spirit, and it's from Mario Galaxy 2, which asks if it can guide you, and if you say yes, it will possess Mario, and it takes the crown, the earrings, that little chest piece, and the wand that Rosalina owns. Also, in Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, we have the Dark Star and the three sages that sealed it away. The entity known as the Dark Star created Dark Bowser, and the Dark Star is the heart of Dark Bowser. And it fused with Fawful, a reoccurring character in the Mario & Luigi games, and their goal is to cover the world in darkness and rule over it. This Dark Star is a sentient artifact, and you may be asking, how is it sentient? Well, if you know anything about Mario games and the Mario universe, sentient stars are the gods of the universe, and invincibility stars mean that they're gifts from these quote-unquote all-powerful gods. But wait a second, you may be saying, if the star is an evil god, then it's a demon, but actually that's incorrect in the Mario universe, because the Koopas are the demons, and Bowser's Japanese title is Great Demon King of the Turtle Tribe. Also, false gods aren't always these all-powerful and supreme beings. The Bible also considers objects to be false gods. By that I mean, if you care about things above God, for example, money, sex, power, then you're just worshipping a false god. So I give you some examples of objects as false gods, so when I show you this character, then you'll know the victim of one of the examples I mentioned. We all know he only cares about money, so like, that's the thing. So it's time to move on to the video game series of my childhood. This is a game I grew up with, and a game that filled me with useless knowledge until now. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a big Zelda nerd letting out all the information he has out of his brain. In The Legend of Zelda 1 and 2, there were no mentions of gods due to Nintendo censoring religion in the early days, and this was the same thing for A Link to the Past. But in Japan, The Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past was known as Triforce of the Gods. An area in the game was named Church, then censored in the West. There was a Bible item, also censored in the West, and there was a concept art only shown in Japan that never appeared overseas of Link kneeling at a cross with Jesus on it. Okay, so you have a game where the main character was a Christian, and at the same time he used magic. Magic isn't something that comes from God. Jesus even said, one cannot serve God and mammon, and in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 it says, you cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of the demon. Both quotes meaning, you can't serve God and serve the devil at the same time. You can't walk the path of God made for you and the path of demons that strays you to somewhere else. In Zelda games, you have sages, you have 3 golden goddesses, you have a goddess of time, you have a mask created by a cult, you have fairies, you have great fairies, you have fairy queens, you have a demon and his reincarnations, and an army that serves them. Let me explain what I call the Zelda Power Pyramid. You know how countries have their social pyramid where... Here's an example of one in medieval times, but you get what I mean, it's social status. But my Zelda Power Pyramid shows the status of the false gods. First, you have the 3 golden goddesses, known as the creators of the universe, and also the ones who doomed the world by creating the Triforce, and they take the appearance of women or dragons. Then you have the goddess of time and the sages. The goddess of time is reincarnated as a sage on one occasion. Then you have the great fairy queen, you have great fairies, the deities, the great Deku tree, and a giant fish, and there are a lot of giant fish in Zelda games. And then you have Ganon and Majora's Mask, Ganon being the reincarnation of a demon Demise, and what wants to destroy and conquer the entire world, while Majora is a cursed mask made by a cult, and God tells people in the Bible not to get involved with the cult. Romans chapter 1 says that people who worship false gods are impure. In the ending of Minecraft, there are 2 beings, one being speaking in blue text and one being speaking in green text. Now, you never actually see them, but they claim to be the gods of this universe, and they speak to you, and I don't really want to get too in-depth in this, but Game Theory actually did a full video on this, so link in the description to that below. And we have Pokemon, more specifically, legendary Pokemon. This picture over here only depicts the Pokemon from the first 5 generations, and currently there are 7. So, Pokemon has a story on how the world was created, but instead of telling the story of creation, I'm going to tell you what each legendary does or did. I already mentioned legendaries in the first episode of Sins in Pokemon, which, you know, I'm going to have a follow-up to that. And if you could watch the first part if you want. So I'm going to start with Generation 2 in this video, starting with Riku, Entei, and Suicune. They were 3 different Pokemon who were trapped in a fire, but then a Pokemon named Ho-Oh turned them into 3 powerful beasts. You have Celebi, the time-traveling Pokemon, you have Lugia and the Guard of the Sea, and Ho-Oh, Guardians of the Sky. We have Reggie-Ice, Reggie-Steel, and Reggie-Rock for Generation 3, and they are the children of the legendary that moves continents. The children are known as the 3 legendary titans, and they are very hostile. Then we have the Eon duo, Latias and Latios. Latias, it can feel others' emotions, while Latios can make people see whatever it imagines. Jirachi is the wish-granting Pokemon, and next you have the Weather Trio, Groudon, the Land Pokemon, Kyogre, the Sea Pokemon, and Rayquaza, the Sky Pokemon. And finally, for Generation 3, you have Deoxys, the DNA Pokemon, and it has 4 forms. It has its normal form, its attack form, its defense form, and its speed form. Now for Generation 4, we have the Lake Guardians, Azelf. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the other two. Misbrit and Uxie. And then there's the Creation Trio. Dialga is the Time Pokemon, Palkia is the Space Pokemon, and Giratina is the Antimatter Pokemon, although its powers seem to be more about gravity, so I like calling it the Gravity Pokemon. Then we have Darkrai and Cresselia, and they are both Dream Pokemon, Darkrai being the Pokemon of Nightmares, and Cresselia being the Pokemon of Good Dreams. Next we have Heatran, and it's the embodiment of the planet's boiling core, and it's born around the same time as Dialga and Palkia. Next we have Regigigas, and it is said to have moved continents in place, and it apparently pulled the continents by a rope, and it also created the legendary Titans. And the last of Generation 4 is Shaman, and it is the Gratitude Pokemon, and it has 2 forms, its land form and its sky form. Now for Generation 5, we have Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem, and these 3 dragons were once one single dragon, but then they split. Reshiram is the Pokemon of Truth, Zekrom is the Pokemon of Ideals, and Kyurem is just the remains of the original dragon, and it's said that a hero waits for it to fill its missing parts of its body with truth and ideals. I don't know how to pronounce these Pokemon's names, so please bear with me. We have Cobalion, Terraxion, and Virizion, and Keldeo. And they apparently protected Pokemon from their habitats being destroyed by humans, and they are known to attack humans' castles during the Middle Ages. Then we have the Forces of Nature, Thornadus, Thunderdus, and Landorus. And in Gen 5, the last legendaries are Melonetta, the Melody Pokemon, and Victini, the Victory Pokemon. Now in Generation 6, and don't worry guys, this is the last ones, but still bear with me, because I don't know how to pronounce some of these names. Now you have Exorbees, and it's the Pokemon of Life, and you have Yveltal, and it's the Pokemon of Death. You have Zygarde, and that's a Pokemon that brings order between both of them, and Zygarde has 3 other forms. And then there's Hoopa, the Mischief Pokemon, and finally we make our way to Generation 7. First you have Sylveon, and it's a Pokemon that was created in a lab and it was supposed to be like Arceus. And I know Arceus is a Gen 4 legendary, but I want to save him for last. And then you have the Guardians of the Island of Alola, Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, and Tapu Bolo, and Tapu Fini, and you have the Ultra Beasts, and they aren't really considered legendary Pokemon, but instead they are powerful Pokemon from other dimensions. I'll only list the important ones: Cosmog, Cosmion, Solgaleo, and Lunala. And last you have the Ultra Beast known as Necrozma, and it's the Pokemon that steals light. And I also forgot there's Marshadow, but it's not really important. So that was all the legendary Pokemon, but who created them? Well, Arceus was the Pokemon born from a single egg, and the entire world was created, and that's about it. So, that's all the games I've done on the channel. Now what? Well, before moving on to the next games, I feel like I should address something. I am a fan of Nintendo games, and as a Christian and as an individual, I want to share these facts to the world. Another thing is that I'm not trying to send a hateful message toward Nintendo or any video game companies. This also includes content creators on YouTube. Before I dedicated my life to my religion, I never wanted to, because I thought I'd have to give up all the video games I liked, all the shows I liked, but then I learned that that's not the case. I learned that I could still like these things, but I know when I've gotten too far into them, and that's when I have to give it a break or stop for a while. Okay, so that's my small bit of clarification. Now, the Kid Icarus series, and is it even called a series? It's more like a trilogy, but whatever. Kid Icarus. And I just wanted to say this now, the gods in this game aren't really that powerful. I mean, an angel defeated like about 5 on his own, so here are the gods of Kid Icarus. First we have Palutena, the goddess of light and ruler of the sky world, and we have Medusa, the goddess of darkness. Hades is the lord of the underworld, and his underworld army is made up of monsters that were created by the souls of humans. Viridi is the goddess of nature, and she commands the forces of nature, and she sees mankind as her enemy. Pandora is the goddess of calamity, and Pandora is a commander of the underworld. Pyron is a self-proclaimed sun god, and Pyron has a strong sense of justice and possesses vast knowledge of the Aurum, a beacon of destruction and corruption. The war between Palutena's army and the forces of nature, and the underworld's army, attracts them to the overworld. Thanatos is a god of destruction, and he's a commander of the underworld army. Thyntos is the god of the forge, and Thyntos is capable of creating powerful weapons and replicas of enemies. And finally, Poseidon is the god of the sea, and Poseidon prefers to remain a neutral party in affairs of others. The final Nintendo game I want to cover is Xenoblade Chronicles, and more specifically the main character Shulk. Around the end of the game, Shulk is given the power of a god, and with this power, he wishes that the world had no god, and in doing so, all the events of this game basically never happened. And from what I know about Xenoblade Chronicles, it's about a world that you think has a god or something, but then you find out in the end it was just a bunch of scientists that kind of restarted the whole world and created their own. So this video is getting kind of long and it's very delayed. I had to record these between a long period of time, so today is December 24th and it was stupid of me for procrastinating and stuff, so I'm sorry if the last parts of the video seem a bit rushed. And the last thing I do want to cover is Undertale. And Undertale right now is my most watched video, and it is currently old and cringy, and it's just a really bad timeline theory, and let me tell you, the comments don't really agree with what the video said. And yes, I understand that to you, Undertale isn't dying, but let's be honest, there's not that much content except that new dog shrine and a Japanese translation. So, I don't know if this is really two false gods or one false god in this game, since they're basically the same person. But Flowey and Azrael. Now, Flowey, when he has 6 human souls, which apparently if you have 7 of them you become a quote-unquote god, because you are able to control time and space throughout the entire game, or whatever. I don't want to get too into it, I'm going to get more hate comments from Undertale fans. But Flowey gets 6 souls, he has some power, he has power over time and space, but he has more power over time and space when he gets all 7, and then he turns back into his original monster form. And I don't want to keep speaking about this because Undertale fans, they get pretty triggered. And we're done. Thank you all so much for a great 2017, and I hope you enjoy your Christmas. Merry Christmas, crewmates, and God bless you. Enjoy.